Hello everyone. Today in this video, we will implement JWT Authentication with RefreshToken in .NET 9 Web API. We shall start by creating a .NET Web API backend in Visual Studio 2022. We shall implement JWT Authentication, RefreshToken, register user and secure API endpoints. And then we shall test our API in Postman. By the end of this tutorial, you shall have a fully functional authentication backend system with JWT and refresh tokens. Before we dive into the implementation, let's first understand what a JWT token is and why we use it, right? So here on the screen, we have a visual breakdown of a JWT token. JSON Web Token. JWT is a compact URL safe token format used for securely transmitting information between parties as a JSON object. It is widely used for stateless authentication in modern APIs. As we can see on the screen, a JWT token has three parts: header, payload, and signature. Header part contains metadata about the type of token and the signing algorithm used. Payload, this is the core part of the token that contains claims. Claim are actually statements about an entity, usually the user, like their ID, username, or role. Then we have signature. This is created by taking the encoded header, encoded payload, a secret key, and signing them using the specified algorithm. Actually, the signature ensures the token wasn't tampered with, right? All three parts are base64 encoded and separated by dots. So a complete token may look like something like this, right? The beauty of JWT is that it's stateless. The server doesn't need to store session information. Instead, the token itself contains all the information needed for authentication. Okay, now let's get started with its implementation in the code. Okay, first of all, we open Visual Studio 2022. Click on Create a new project. Select ASP.NET Core Web API. Click on Next. Name the project something like JWT Auth Demo. Click on Next. Select the framework .NET 9. Click on Create. Okay, we have set up our basic project. Now our first step is to install the required NuGet packages for authentication and database access. So we will install all of these packages one by one. I copy first package and paste the command. Similarly, we install the remaining packages. Okay, all the required packages are installed. Okay, next let's store JWT setting in appsettings.json. I open it and I enter JWT settings. Okay, this JWT setting is our custom configuration section in appsettings.json file. And security key is used to sign and validate JWT token. It should be at least 256 bits long, 32 plus characters. Now let's enable JWT authentication in our program.cs. Okay, now we add section to enable JWT token. Okay, first of all, we are getting security key from appsettings.json, right? Now we are using builder.services.add authentication. It actually registers the authentication service in the app and sets the default scheme to JWT bearer, so the app knows to use JWT token for authentication, right? It actually tells ASP.NET Core how to validate the incoming request. Okay, add JWT bearer. This sets up how the JWT token will be validated. And next we see some token validation parameters that tells the framework how to validate the JWT token. First we get the issuer's sign-in key using our authentication key, security key in appsettings.json. Validate issuer false. It skips checking the token's issuer. Who issued the token. If we set it to true, then we should also set validate issuer. right? Validate audience false. It skips checking the token's audience. I mean, who the token is intended for. Validate lifetime true. It ensures the token is not expired. Then we have clock skew. It defines a grace period. I mean, is a small difference in time between two systems, usually your server and a client. So time span dot zero means if the token expires, reject it immediately after that, right? Okay, we have enabled JWT authentication. Next, we need to enable authentication and authorization middleware. So I have already enabled authentication and authorization middleware. Okay, let's create our data models. First, create a new folder called models. Okay, we will use two data models for user and product. The user model represents a user who can log in, and the product model represents the product that authenticated users can access. Okay, right click, add class user and product. For user, we add some properties like this, and for product, we add properties like this. Now let's set up the database context to manage our entities like user and product. So I right click on models. Okay, I right click on the project, add new folder and name it data, and add a class application DB context. I make necessary changes in this application DB context. Now this application DB context class will be used to interact our database. It contains DB set properties for user and product entities representing the respective table in the database. We need to add another model like refresh token. Right click on models, add class. I name it refresh token. I add properties like ID, user ID, token ID, refresh token. We don't need expiry date, so let me remove it. As user and refresh token will have one-to-many relationships, so we added navigation property of user inside this class. We also need to update our user data model. Refresh token is a navigation property that represents the collection of refresh token associated with the user, right? Let's add connection string in our appsettings.json so that whenever we perform migration, our table corresponding to data models are created in the database. Okay, now let's perform migration to create database and corresponding tables. Okay, before we run the migration command, we need to register our application DB context in program.cs. We go to program.cs, we go to builder.services, and here we register our application DB context. Okay, we have registered our application DB context. Now our application knows about the database as well. If you want to understand entity framework code first approach and migration in detail, I have created a video tutorial on it. I will give its link in the description. Do check it out as well. Okay, let's run the migration to create our tables in the database. I create add migration JWT authentication. Now run the update database command. Okay, now let's verify if our database and our tables are created. Open SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, our database is created. And our required tables, products, refresh token and users are also created. Okay, we have defined a JWT configuration section in our app setting file. Now let's add few more configurations like issuer, audience, access token expiry minutes and refresh token expiry. Here issuer identify who issued the token. Typically it's our backend API, right? Audience specifies who the token is intended for, usually the front-end application consuming the API. And access token expiry minutes, it defines how long the access token should remain valid. And refresh token expiry days, how long the refresh token is valid, right? Okay, now let's create a token service to generate JWT token and refresh tokens. We create a service folder. I add a class TokenService. Okay, now we add two methods like generate JWT token and generate refresh token inside this class. Now let's walk through our TokenService class, which is responsible for generating JWT token and managing both access token and refresh token. Okay, in the constructor, we are injecting two services here. I configuration, so we can read values from appsettings.json like our secret key, expiry setting, etc. We have application DB context, which allow us to access our database for saving or retrieving refresh token. Then we have generate access token method. This method generates a JWT access token for an authenticated user, right? Here first we define the claims. These are values actually encoded into the token, like the username, user role and some other user information. Then we get the secret key from configuration and creating signing credential using HMAC SHA 256 algorithm. Next we define when this token will expire. We read the expiration time from our configuration. Okay, we then build the JWT token using issuer, audience, claims, expiry and credentials. Finally, we return the encoded token string. Now let's talk about refresh token. Here we create a secure random string to use as a refresh token and assign it a unique token ID. Here we are defining expiry for refresh token. Here we have added 5 days, right? So we can get it from configuration as well. Here refresh token expiry date 7. Okay, I copy key here. Okay, JWT setting refresh token expiry days. Okay, here we store the refresh token with user ID and token ID. Finally, we save it in the database and return the refresh token string to the client. We have added two more methods in this class like get refresh token and revoke refresh token, which may we need in the future. Get refresh token, this method is used when the client sends back a refresh token, right? We look it up in the database and return it. Revoke refresh token, when we want to invalidate a refresh token, for example during a logout or token misuse, we can remove it from the database. In this way, this token service class provides a secure way to maintain authentication and reissue token without asking the user to log in repeatedly, right? Okay, now let's add our endpoints for register, login and refresh token. For this, we will create a controller called AuthorizeController. So I go to controller, right click, add controller, API empty, add. I name it AuthorizeController. We have created AuthorizeController. Before I write code for this controller, let's first create a simple model class, TokenModel. Go to models, add, give it name TokenModel. I add only two properties like token and refresh token. We shall use object of TokenModel class to pass data from client to server to get a refresh token and then send response from generate refresh token method. Okay, now let's write code for AuthorizeController. So I create two variables like context and configuration. Application DB context and private read only configuration. I inject both of these classes into this controller. Now I write methods for login, register and refresh token. First I add method for register, then for login. Okay, we need to inject token service as well. Okay, it's done. And we add method for refresh token. Register is a very simple registration endpoint, right? We just create a user model in the request body and add it to the database and return success message. And our login endpoint handles user login. We first check if the username and password match existing user. If valid, we call our token service to generate both a JWT access token and a refresh token, right? Finally, we return both to the client. Then we have refresh endpoint. This endpoint lets the client refresh their JWT token if the original one has expired. First, we check if the refresh token exists and is valid. Then we fetch the associated user. We create a new access token and a new refresh token. Finally, we revoke old refresh token to prevent reuse. This ensures that the user can continue accessing secure APIs without logging in again, right? Okay, now our authentication system is almost complete. So now let's add one more controller to test this JWT based authentication. We shall create a simple product controller that returns a list of products, and only authenticated user will be able to fetch the list of the products. Okay, I go to controller, right click, add controller, API, product, empty, product controllers. Okay, I have decorated the controller with authorize attribute, which means all action inside this controller requires authentication, right? Okay, I make changes to get all the product. Copilot is suggesting some default code, so I accept it. I remove it. Okay, now everything seems to be done. So let's build the project and run it, and then we test it in Postman. Okay, before I run, I go to properties, launch setting.json, and launch browser tool. Okay, we run it. Okay, we have opened the Postman. Now we will go through the full flow. Let's first register a user. Add request. I call it register user. It's a post call. Okay, I put some JSON data in request body to register the user. I provide endpoint here. It is API controller register, API authorize and register. Let's click on send. Error unable to resolve service of type token service while attempting to activate. Okay, so we have not registered this token service in program.cs so that we can inject it using dependency injection. So let's register it. Okay, we go to program.cs and just before db context I add this line, register token service, right? Okay, let's rerun the project. We go back to controller and let's click on send. So it says the refresh token field is required. So we are getting this error because it is expecting refresh token. So let's make this refresh token nullable. Now this refresh token will be optional. Let's rerun the project. Okay, let's add another property like ID, but we set it as 0. Okay, so our request is ready. So let's click on send. Okay, the breakpoint has been hit. F10. Okay, looks like user is registered this time. Let's verify from database. Okay, so user registered. Okay, now let's test the login API. So I make duplicate, make it login. I change API to login. Okay, so and I copy this payload and okay, we have here. So our payload is ready. So let's test the login now. Let's put the breakpoint first. Okay, let's click on send. Okay, this time the role field is required. Let's make this role field as optional. Okay, rerun the project. Click on send. Okay, it has hit login API. Let's debug it. Okay, we got access token and refresh token. Okay, let's access the product controller to verify if we are able to get the product list using this token. In authorization, I go to bearer token and paste my JWT token here. Okay, it looks good. Let's see what is the product API. API product get product. Okay, click on send. Okay, so our user is authenticated. It has accepted a JWT token. We don't have any product at the moment, so let's add some sample product. I directly add product from the table like laptop. Then I give mouse. Okay, now let's hit the API again. Okay, so we got the products. Let's remove this JWT token and see if unauthenticated user can access it. Okay, so it's not allowing for one unauthorized. Okay, now let's verify refresh token. For that we need to make sure our JWT token is expired. So I set access token expiry minute 1, so that after 1 minute our JWT token will be expired. So we will make refresh token API call. So let's run it. Okay, go to AuthorizeController login API, click on send. Okay, it has generated access token again and refresh token as well. So let's verify if we have this token in our database. See, we have token ID and refresh user token for each user in our database. So let's wait for JWT token to expire. So in the meanwhile, we prepare a request for refresh token. I give it name refresh. Okay, so in body, we need to pass token model token and refresh token. Okay, here is token refresh token. Okay, let's copy our access token and then again we copy refresh token and set its value here. Okay, well now we have set up both token and refresh token. Okay, I think token is expired. Let's copy this token again and again access the products. Let's see if we are able to access the products with expired token this time. Okay, so it's not allowing to access because token has been expired. Okay, let's generate JWT token again using the refresh token. We go to refresh token API, click on send. Okay, we have received both refresh token and token, right? Okay, so we hit our refresh token API. So click F10 using refresh token. It is getting refresh token object. So we got the refresh token record and using user ID from the refresh token, we get the user object. And similarly again we generate access token and JWT token and revoke the previous refresh token and return the new refresh token. Let's continue. Okay, so we got the access token and refresh token. Let's copy this access token and see if we are able to access the products this time. Okay, so we are able to access the products because using refresh token we again regenerated JWT token. And that's it. We have successfully implemented JWT authentication and refresh token logic using .NET 9 Web API. We covered user registration, login, token generation, token refresh, and secure API testing via Postman. Right? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tutorials like this. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.